All right. So let me start with who I am and what are my qualifications to be standing up here. Um, I've been a health professional for over 33 years, and my qualifications are that I'm a New York State licensed massage therapist. I have about 12 different certifications, including nationally certified personal trainer through the American Council on Exercise. I have my own practice and have been doing so for almost 33 years, and I specialize in senior care, and with a specialty of joint replacement rehab from surgery, specifically hips and knees. And I personally have a hip replacement, so I learned firsthand about, in December 20th, 2004, what it was going to take to put all my skills towards helping people with these same conditions. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Let me tell you who I am and where I've been. And I started out my life very, very traumatically. And I was born in 1960, and I came out with a tumor in my large intestines. I had 3 hernias by the time I was 5 years old, and I was crippled and put on a full-length leg brace and crutches. Don't cry, Scott. I'm starting to feel sorry for seeing a little boy now of the trauma that he went through. And, anyway, at 7, I was on a full-length brace and crutches, and my dreams were squashed, basically. And all I wanted to be at that point was the shortstop of the New York Mets, I wanted to take Buddy Harrelson's position. And it was sad. But my spirit just would not be stopped. Even at that point, I look back, and the biggest thing I was yelled at as a child was running with my leg brace unlocked. And my father kept saying, "You're going to be on that brace for your whole life if you keep running and unlocking it." I refused to have that be the way I was. And as a health professional, I look and see, wow, I was keeping my fitness going. It may have put me on the brace for a little longer, but it was to be talked about. We can have long discussions on whether that was the best thing or not. And I was always busted by the leather straps that kept my foot in the brace, because if I ran around with it unlocked, the straps would rip. And that's what I would get yelled at, because my father would have to take my brace down to the workshop and replace the straps. So, anyway, it was traumatic, just beyond words. And if anyone has been disabled, you're ostracized. And I was, as a little boy, ostracized. And I was not going to be stopped at that point. And I got off the brace, and it was probably the happiest day of my life. In 1969, I still remember running around the reservoir in the sun and being yelled at to stay on the crutches. And it was the happiest day of my life. And the trauma was going to continue in my life, where my mother had gotten cancer, and I had to go from the most beautiful point that I could reach for at 9 years old, and then have to deal with watching my mother disintegrate from cancer in the early 70s. And and back then, I'm sure some of you know, it was gruesome, and it was not a pretty sight. And people who have cancer now have way more of a shot. And I work with people in those conditions, and I'll talk more about that and how I work with that in a little while. So the trauma continued, and I had then, after watching her pass away at 41, and she was my best friend, and she was the only person I got real, true love from in my life at that point. So I had to deal with that with minimal education and support because my father had checked out, basically. And I see some of my family members and people who knew me, they know what I'm talking about. So anyway, then came life's challenges that were thrown into my life at 12 and then on, of drugs and abuse and being a little boy at 12, 13, 14 years old, where my older brothers taught me how to medicate. And then that was the next challenge in my life that was put on my plate, was substance abuse and behavioral abuse. And that's when, by the time I was 14, I knew I had a problem. And there was nothing then. There was no help. There was no education. And it was the only way I knew how to, medicate those feelings of loss and hurt and pain. And, this was life. And my anger towards God and the process and Judaism and religion and spirituality was off. I was like, how could you? I hate you. That was my come from. I hate this. I want out. And that's something I deal with even up to today. There's those thoughts of resistance of life. One of my therapists told me, Scott, you've arrived on the planet, but you just have not unpacked yet. And it was one of the wisest things I've ever heard as far as therapy, and I've been unpacking. I mean, Relativity, the book Relativity is Scott unpacking. And my practice has been one of healing and trial and error and mistake and battling my own demons through the last 28 years of recovery for myself. And if you know me, I'll have a couple of you share if you want later, but it has only served who I've become and who, and that qualifies me to stand up here and talk about physical disability, spiritual disability, emotional, mental disability, and all of the problems that every single one of us are faced with here, whether you have a son, a daughter, a cousin, a spouse that deals with disability, and substance abuse and addiction, and the crossover afflictions are what we're talking about. And that's what I address in the book. And let me get into the book, because now I just want to share that where the book came from. Relativity was conceived in the 1980s. I was already into my recovery, my fitness, therapy, spirituality. Since 17, I was reaching for the answers. I was saying, I have to live, and I have to get to be more than just a train wreck. And, coming out of the rubble, it's just been a 30-year process of healing from my teens. And I have been through literally hundreds of thousands of hours of therapy, metaphysics, spirituality, and mistakes of pursuing people, places, and things that I thought could get me through life. For instance, joining a religious cult when I was 19, reaching for God, knowing that I needed an answer. I needed something bigger than myself to carry me through. However, I found out the hard way that people can steal spirits and souls, and I had a first-hand experience of that in 1979, and I thank God for my father who had kidnapped me out and had a deprogramming, and then I ultimately went on to testify against that cult leader. I don't want to say his name or his Korean nationality, or that he was big and fat. However, I'm telling you this because in that process of reaching for God, that was what I was reaching for. And that's what I've always been reaching for, and I believe that's what we all are reaching for, is the love and the Godhood, and to go back home into our souls and our spirits. And everybody here knows that ain't it, he wasn't it, she wasn't it, all the stuff, all the fitness. If I look good, it'll be it. If I find the right mate, it'll be it. If I do this with this person, no. So I learned how my mind can be conditioned to the biggest lies. And being in a religious cult, I was ready to kill for a strange Korean man. And that was scary. I literally was willing to take my life and anyone else's who stood in front of me and my mission. I found God, and it was a Messiah that I knew nothing of. And that was at 19 years old. So I understand the pursuit of people who are willing to kill themselves and others for God, or the concept of their belief and perception of God. And when I see what's happened in New York and throughout the world, it's scary for me, because I can identify with what they're going through, and at the same time, I'm powerless, just like we all are, unless you're on a security team for the government. Let me come back on track for relativity. So we had my spiritual experiences, my therapeutic experiences, my therapeutic community experiences. And the bottom line to where relativity came in was sitting in many meetings, therapeutic groups, recovery groups, thinking, oh my God, so many of my friends are getting sick and dying from secondary illnesses that had nothing to do with alcohol or drugs, but what I call the crossover afflictions: procrastination, lethargy, or just to rationalization, minimization. Oh, I can do that later. Who cares? As long as I'm breathing, I'm okay. That's over here on the common man's side. And then you have the same sort of rationalization and minimization of a traditional addict who has similar behaviors as everybody. So my point in sitting in those meetings was, I was seeing that, you didn't have to be a declared addict to get what these programs were offering. And that's where I came up with Relativity's 12 principles, which relate to traditional 12-step programs. However, it's in the language that common contemporary people can understand and use the proven method that came from those recovery programs and the 12-step programs and apply them into health and fitness and spirituality. And that is the core of the first part of Relativity, the 12 principles. The second part of the book is called Relativity's Daily Breath. What I found that in every modality there is breathing. And it may sound simplistic, but breathing touches fitness, working out, meditation, prayer, athletics. Every dimension that we live in, we can find that our breathing is involved in our wellness. And more, we're finding that lack of oxygenation in our bodies, in our cells, is contributing to Alzheimer's and cancer and all of the diseases that even non-smokers or people who kind of work out are finding what's going on. I'm not getting the oxygen in my body that is needed. And that's what I'm noticing as a health professional is that, wow, the Daily Breath is a 90-90 program, 90 readings in 90 days, okay? There are 2 to 3 paragraphs each day. And in each writing of the Daily Breath, you are instructed to breathe through my writings and my life experiences, which I incorporate in each one of the writings. And just by reading the Daily Breath, you are reminded, oh, wow, in rushing or commuting or walking down the supermarket aisle, I can remember to breathe and stop. And where we go further with Relativity is communication. It's Relativity empowering wellness through communication. So when I can stop and take a breath, I have a shot at listening and making a new choice in each moment. And I'm sure everybody can identify with that. Taking a breath, breathe, come back into my body, listen. That's communication. What's going on in my body? Where my shoulders, my abdominals, my legs? What is tense? My neck? And one of my daily breaths deals with the acronym WAIT. Where am I tense? And it's just very simple writings to remind us to breathe in every single kind of situation we're involved in, whether it's working out or praying, meditating. It's a technique I've come up with to simply just read and repeat. Repeat, seeing, breathing in each situation of our lives. So that, in a nutshell, is Relativity. Working with 12 principles which, what I like to say, help me get connected with my God of my understanding, and then incorporating it in different areas. So, that being said, are there any questions at this point about what I've said, who I am, Relativity? What is Relativity? Anybody want to venture out and give it a shot? I can't really see if there are hands up. Oh, everybody's shy here. Oh, okay.
I won't be so shy. I'll ask a good question.
Thank you.
Are you happy today? And what is your family situation? Are you married? Do you have children? How do you feel about life today?
Well, let me answer, am I happy? And it's not sarcastic and it's not flippant, but it's how I answer a lot of those questions. Yes, no, maybe. And I mean that. I'm not going to throw the bull around saying I'm happy. However, I have my ways that I've practiced to come home and stay alive and be standing up here and talking about things that have enabled me to be alive and helping people. My life's not about being happy. It's about being of service. And that took over 50 years for me to get to. You know, how can I give what I want so badly? And that's where the book is. And that's where my life is. So I'm divorced. I have no children. And I live by myself in Westchester County. And I'm working every day on finding happiness within. I work towards it. But, you know, people who know me, I come in all different conditions. If you're going to be my trainee, So, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Can I ask you,
Sure.
what is your plan with your book? Are you going to go around the world, or England, or Germany, or somewhere to promote this idea of?
Well, I'm starting on 55th Street on a rainy night with the help of John Hess and Laura Haggerty and Emily and Andrew and Robert and Mike Caputo and the club. And I have a vision. You know, we have a website, and we have audio daily breaths on that website. I have written my second book, which is a daily reader of 365 days of the daily breath. And what we have at the site now are a building bank of audio daily breaths. So I listen to it every day. I have designed it so we can make 2 or 3 taps on a smartphone or a tablet or a computer and get a 1.5 to 3 minute message to bring me back home.
No, but how you're going to promote it? I mean, you have very interesting thing in your book. I read your book, Mr. Gary, and there are a lot of interesting lines that if you really go depth into it, you understand. But how are you going to tell masses of people?
No, I got to start with a couple of people, and you know, I looked at this event as a practice to get up and verbalize what I'm about and answer questions like that woman had about, am I happy? You know, no, yes, maybe.
Well, I'm not talking about your personal life. I'm talking strictly your professional life as a trainer.
Okay.
And that's my subject.
So what do you see?
I'm saying that there are, just in our building, you will see a lot of people having a hard time moving around and things like that. And your training helped me when I had a surgery, my knee surgery.
Yeah.
And I really thank you up to now that I'm able to kick around now.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do with other people? I mean, your message is very nice and interesting, but you got here 100, few people. How are you going to promote this thing to masses people?
Well, we could talk after, and you can give me some good ideas. I know that you work with an international company, so we could talk about it. And I know Laura and I, were going to meet with you. However, you know, standing up and talking in front of people, it takes practice, like working out or any sort of skill or sport. And I'm writing the third book, Relativity's Empowering the Competitive Spirit. And that's for young people, teenagers, and college athletics and competition, and how to keep spirituality and integrity in competition. And so I'm just growing with Relativity.
We've often discussed the need for senior wellness and the quality of life and what's the point in growing old if you can't enjoy it. And we both work in gyms and have seen the younger trainers doing more damage than good. Do you want to speak to that point?
Yeah. And I address this in the book as well, of what I call, thank you, Elizabeth, I appreciate that, what I call joint integrity, which is at the core of the problem and the solution to what we see in the industry happening. Inappropriate exercising and fitness programs for people's conditions and ages. And my whole technique deals with safety for your joints. I've watched people age. I've watched people who are fit and who actually work out, but have very, very poor technique in their regimes. And I watched through decades, and I can see what's happening, what I call a tsunami of joint problems. And it's really starting to happen, you can see that, where people are doing too fast, too much, too soon, with very little concern with the longevity of their joints. That's the number one problem with my seniors, is joint disability and mobility. Number one on the list, mobility. And any trainer or any health professional who does not keep that as a core for a long-term program, you should think twice about. It's like, why am I jumping rope? I'm a 60, 70-year-old woman, but I'm jumping rope. Why? And ask, get into the questions. Okay, if you're my professional, why are you telling me to bounce on my joints? Or lunge here, or try and throw kettlebells over my head and bend forward. And I've seen it time and time again where that person's going to come in injured. And sure enough, their lower back hurts or they've hurt their shoulder. So in short, it's horrendous what's going on. Now, back to communication. If we were trained to communicate to ourselves and listen to our bodies and our health professionals and our support network, we would have a sense in that arena of exercise and fitness that something's not right. They're telling me to do something, or they're telling me to buy a prescription drug that I, in my gut, knows is not good. But that's what's lacking in health and fitness. You know, I gotta look the part. If I don't, you know, there's such an inertia with our children and our kids and our teenagers to look hot and flat abs and big muscles and tight this and aesthetically perfect. We are designing children to be, fantasy addicts of what they're not. You know, and it's an endless situation. What I address also in some of my writing is that fantasy of total disconnection to spirituality. You know, why am I working out? I say it in my book. People come up to me, why do you work out? Only to stack the deck in my favor. That's it. You could get hit by a bus. Yeah, but at least I'm going to be walking. You know? Right? I go into those gyms and I got a smile on my face. I'm happy. You know, I didn't have it. I lost it. And I've lost it many times. My mobility, my freedom, all of it. And, it's hard to say I wish that on you so you could get that. But don't we sometimes when we lose something we cherish, don't we appreciate it more? So maybe that can come from the book too. Of, wow, here's a person who lost so much so early and has now shown an appreciation and a way to get back to spirituality, which breathing and breathing conditioning is one technique that is critical that every single human can practice. We can practice it right now. And just take a breath. Oh, I feel better. This is what I found out in the last couple of weeks. All right, so I've written a lot about it. What's up with my breathing? And I'm washing the dishes, and I'm leaning on the edge of the sink, and I'm having trouble breathing because I'm leaning on the sink, washing the dishes. And I'm like, oh, my God, I got to write a daily breath on washing dishes now. So that's exactly those kind of situations I want you to come in contact with. What's it for you? Am I sleeping in a poor position where I'm not breathing well? And that's what the readings and the audio daily breaths will help you with in your day-to-day practice. I don't have the answer. I would not venture. I've been with people who say they got the answer in the way. I do not. I have a technique, methods, and my life experience for you to read and look at and try. That's it. I would never, ever tell you to follow me. Don't. However, learn from what I'm showing and practicing in my book. Any other questions?
Known you a long time.
Yeah.
Oops, thank you. So I've watched you through many of these phases, and I've heard you articulate the concept of breathing for many, many years and everything else that goes along with it. And I read this book cover to cover, and it's coherent and it makes a lot of sense. What do you do every day? How did you get from being kind of the mess that you've been at different points in your life, and find what really is a simple and obvious, but obvious, quite important tool, right? And then expand it into like a whole way of life. But what do you do every day to bring yourself back to that?
That's a great question. Laura has seen me in my best and my worst, even to this past couple of weeks of getting ready for this and like going through a meltdown and trying to micromanage everything and wanting to quit and threatening to not show up. And I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I got 700 things to do. Well, I'm just a trainer and a massage therapist. I don't want to do this. I'm 54 years old. It was like, that's what I deal with when I wake up. So I sit, as I tell my clients, breathe. Principle 1, help me. Help. Breathe. Right. See, that's my biggest client. Literally, no. Principle 1. It's just you admit or you make an admission that, I need help in this moment. That's what I practice. God. And I say God to my understanding as spirit. Not to you, not to anybody else. I just call God because now I've done the work of 12 steps, 12 principles, therapy, healing, crying, screaming, therapizing, meditating, working out, trying to do everything I can every day to the point where it's like I'm okay with the fact that my life source is comfortable to me to call God. That's it. My sister says, don't say God, say Hashem, because that's the Jewish proper way to refer to God. And I was like, Karen, oh my God. So we have big arguments on how to refer to God. And so anyway, I'm very serious about that. My darkness, my burnt outness is still with me. And every single day I have to work my principles, which is just languaging. It's a process that everybody knows that's been in any sort of care, recovery, therapy, work on your head, on your emotions. It's like, principle 2 is like, you know what? There is help. Principle 3 is, okay, can you? Will you help me? And asking. So 1 is like, I need it. Number 2 is, it's there. And number 3 is, could you, please? And then the work begins of organizing the crap that's in our heads. Sorry, Laura. Crap's not a curse. That was my big goal, was not to curse. We can find that in the dictionary. So in 4, we take an inventory of what's going on who taught us what? Where did I learn that? Did my parents or my friends tell me I had to be thin and fit? Who taught me that? Who taught me I was a piece of crap or had brain damage, which I had someone telling me as an early age? And that way it's like, oh my God, I realized that's a part of what runs me, that I'm a runt of the litter, and that my parents wanted a girl, and that I was a crippled nothing, nobody, and that's what was on my plate to wake up with every day in my life. And if I want to make myself wrong, or God wrong, or my parents wrong, or the kids that made fun of me and ostracized me wrong, go for it. But it's just going to lead me back down those dark tunnels. That's it. My healing starts from here on every single day. It's my responsibility. What was done to me as a child, the way I was abused and neglected, not taught, left to fend for myself like so many of us, I have to take responsibility for my work, you know? And then, I don't want to go through each one of the principles, but you start to see it's like, help, something's not right. And it's very practical. And it's just the human process of things ain't right, but there's help. I can't see it, but I know it's here. And I call it God, you know, or a higher power. Depends on whether it's Tuesday or Friday. You know, if I'm into, you know, I hate you, God. I hate this process. And I'll cry, and I'll bang my mattress, and I'll yell at Laura or John, or tell them to do a few extra push-ups just out of my crap. And I admit it. But it gets you healthier. That's my rationale. Anyway, so it's on a day-to-day contingency. And that brings up, really, for me, sobriety. And sobriety is really a ruined word. And I like to talk more about what people think sobriety is. To me, it's sanity. You know, because I'm not sober. If I'm walking down the supermarket aisle and those cookies are talking to me in such a way where I'm powerless over the Chips Ahoy, you know, I'm not sane in that moment. When I know I got to fit into the suit to talk to people who are looking at me like I know what I'm talking about. You know, in that moment, I'm not sober. And I've learned that. It doesn't have to be from drink or drug or sex or lust or envy or greed or any of the traditional ones. Am I sober in this moment or not? If not, help. Principle 1, I'm all screwed up. See how I keep going back into that? And that's what you read about in the book, is that simple process. And I write about us humans, we are ego machines. We want to do it ourselves. Nobody else can tell me what to do. I'm going down this path regardless. And I know it's not right, but I'm still going down this path. You know? And it's like, okay, my ego, my maleness, my stubbornness, my defect of character is running the show right now. Take a breath. Can I reach for what I know? Help. You know, and where's your help? Where does it come from? Do you reach with it? Don't call it God if it doesn't work. God doesn't care. He could care less. Really. And that's how I see it. I have one of my favorite pins that says, God is alive. He just doesn't want to get involved. And that's so real for me a lot. It's like, you know what? It's like you guys are so hurt and mangled that you can't hear me talking through him or her. You can't hear it. It's too simple. Breathe. Help. You know, and I've been taught, if a kindergartner or first or second or third grader can't understand a teaching, it's too complicated. It's too much. You're not going to get it. And that's for me. Help. I'm here. I love you. I'm carrying you. I was there when you buried your mother. You had to go through it. You know? That the sores you got from your brace, you know? The limp you had and the arthritis you had for 40 years. I had arthritis for 40 years. And I can say, oh, I love you, God. I don't always mean it. No. But that's what I do every day. That was a great question. It's like, all right, right now it's Monday. I got a client, a 6 o'clock training. I really do not like this lady. I don't want to show up. However, it's my work and it's my service. Any other questions? Ooh, are we wrapping it up? Was that for me? I'm getting hungry. You done, John? Okay. So with that, I want to promote the book. I'm going to be here to sign books, sell books. We also have a membership for Relativity. It's $15 a month. You get the daily breaths. You get the 12 principles. Easy access to the repetitiveness of what I was talking about, what's helped me so much every day. And, you know, it's Relativity.com. If you have to run, just remember Relativity.com, and it's at the website. Or we'll help you join a membership or sell a book, or just if something touched you in this that you think somebody might get something out of, a child, a teenager especially, that could start being educated and taught early by reading a simple book. It's an easy read, right? It's easy. So if you know somebody, get a book for them or go buy it online. I don't really even care. It doesn't matter. I really don't. I know what my mission is at this point. Don't follow me. Look at what I'm learned. Learn from that. You want to buy the books? Help us out. That's it. That's who I am. You know? Anything else? So if we could do a little daily breath. So you don't have to do anything. I'm just going to lead a daily breath here for a few minutes, maybe 2 minutes. You can keep your eyes open. You can leave. You can close your eyes. But as you listen to me, just connect with your breathing. All right? And see what happens as you go within and just use your breath. So I just welcome in the spirit that's within all of us. And I have a feeling right now just gratitude that I could stand up here and that somebody may walk out of this room with some sort of knowledge, one way to further their wellness or somebody else's. Thank you, God, for the opportunity to listen and respond. That's communication. Thank you for the joy of my breathing and my willingness to just get up here and talk and share what I got. And in your own special way of connecting in who you are in your body as who you think you are, just feel the breath going in and out. And maybe tomorrow or the next day, you'll use your breathing to stay home in your body and listen a little deeper. And connect with your creation of life, your creator, your spirit, your higher power, whatever you want to call it. It's there. Doesn't matter what you think. And in this breath, I just say thank you, God, for the opportunity and the privilege. So breathe it. I don't know if there's any more drinks or cocktails or hors d'oeuvres, but thank you. Yep. I'll be right over here if you want books signed and whatever.